All right, 6 o'clock. Let's get this meeting of the Finance Committee started. First thing is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Have in attendance here, Trustee Frank and President Lenz
Here.
and staff.
Here.
Physically, anyway.
Yeah.
All right, public comment? Seeing nobody besides those in the roll call. We'll move on. Consent agenda, approved meetings of October 29th, 2024 Finance Committee meeting.
I'll motion to approve.
You got a motion
I'll second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously. Now for the fun stuff. Discussion and possible recommendation to the Village Board of Trustees on 2026 CIP requests. Take it away, Administrator Jenkins.
Thank you. Well, we're here in the middle of 2025, already talking about our 2026 budget. Our budget process, which I'll outline later on at the village board meeting, starts even earlier than this, but really the first big part of it is approving the capital improvement projects. So for those who don't know, a CIP or capital improvement project is something that is typically worth $10,000 or more in value, and that has a lifespan of more than 5 years. So think of like a fire truck, a plow, road construction, things like that. And so whenever it is put into that kind of category, which is also would be labeled as an asset as far as an audit report goes, then we label it as a CIP, and then we bucket those items year after year. And so what this process looks like is we've done a lot of homework, which we'll describe in a little bit, narrowing down the priorities of the village to certain CIP projects that we're looking for approval on. And then assuming that we get your blessing, then this list will go before the village board coming up soon. So this list that's before you, you have different versions of it. We have a 5-year rolling CIP list, which means that everything that we could possibly think of that's going to need to get replaced at some point here in the next 5 years, at least we hope, goes onto that list. That doesn't mean that it's going to get approved at that specific year. Each year we do our due diligence, and I do my job as administrator of grilling staff, talking with department heads and making sure they're really getting the needs of the village higher up in that priority list, with everything else kind of getting kicked to the side. So I'll give you a good example of that. We started off with, if you exclude the wastewater treatment plant, we started off with about $3 million worth of asks of the village for this coming year. And we're now down to what, 640 in the general fund. So that just shows that, yep, we got a lot of ideas, a lot of hopes and dreams, but we also need to be realistic with taxpayer dollars that we're given to work with. So there's 2 phases to this. One is the list that we have recommended, and then the next is what's the borrowing impact, which we'll talk about in a bit. So I want to start with the list. I had sent out a newer version, and I believe I handed it out in front of you too. You can look at the 2-year scope. So for those who have only been here for a little while, we have transitioned to a 2-year borrowing cycle. The reason we do that is because you typically get a better bang for your buck when you're borrowing a lot all at one time rather than sparsing it out year after year after year. But at the same time, the budget and what you guys are approving is on an annual basis, right? We have an annual budget. So just because we're giving you this outlook and we might be borrowing dollars for the next 2 years, it doesn't mean you're locked into doing these specific projects. You have the ability to change year after year. So what we're going to be looking at is in this 2-year form in the black box, those are specifically the projects for 2026 that we're recommending you approve. So we can start at the top, and then if you have any questions, then we have Director Paulus here, who is a majority of these items, and our treasurer to help answer questions as well. So the first one is a mini excavator. So that would be a new piece of equipment that we do not currently have. Excavators can be used for small projects like landscaping, digging up areas, digging up the splash pad, things like that. Or it can also be used for larger projects if we're lifting up asphalt and, road projects, digging up areas there. Typically, staff have had to either borrow or purchase or rent other types of equipment like that. So this would be getting our own for that purpose. I'll pause there. Any questions for Eric on that?
Do we need to use excavators like this quite often? I mean, would it pay for itself in the long run compared to renting or borrowing?
So some of what we used. So we. Borrowed one, I guess, put on close to 60 hours with the splash pad, the alley, and some of the water main break repairs.
Okay.
So, I mean, it got used in those 3 months we were borrowing it. So.
So
then,
if we didn't have one, what would you be doing? Outside of the splash pad, obviously that's a unique scenario.
if we weren't renting one, it would be hired out. It would have been a contractor coming in. to do
Right.
it.
Any rough estimate idea of how much that would cost for those 3 months then?
To rent it by the hour. I'm gonna lowball because I'm not sure, because a lot of them will do it like $250 a day, so I'd probably say right around $50 an hour. But what we look at, while we do have a backhoe, it's not ideal working on a road. So like the mini, you can actually get up in there and then spin around 360, the backhoe you cannot.
Right.
And then this would have the thumb on it, so when we're picking things up, we can lock into it. So instead of two pieces of equipment pushing in each other, we can actually pick it up.
And any reason why we wouldn't look for used over new?
So what you have in there would be used.
That is a used price.
It's
So
new to
us.
us. It's new to us.
It's a new piece of equipment.
It's a new, so that's.
Yeah.
It's not a replacement.
Would we need to get somebody trained to be able to use it, or is this?
There was, well, everybody, so I had like 4 or 5 different ones come in. So everybody's used it, so they all prefer this over the backhoe. The only downfall is, I mean, it's in here, but we don't have a trailer to haul it, so we'd have to walk it everywhere.
And how long would this or the lifespan of it?
I'd probably say 20 years.
20 years?
Like the bigger stuff, the loader and the backhoe would be a longer life cycle. And then with having rubber tracks on there, driving over nails, sharp edges, you're not, popping tires.
Right.
And then ideally, I'd like to use this for our sidewalk replacement. Because I'm actually able to get right up there, grab the sidewalk and get rid of it instead of with the backhoe. Trying to tear it out and then you're half in the road. So just more,
Is it a little bit, and a backhoe would be a little bit messier on the people's
Uh-huh.
yards too.
and then the mini excavator actually acts like a dozer too, because it's got a blade in the front. So after we dig, we can smooth everything out, so it's kind of eliminating a piece and,
Multi-purpose tool.
So there's efficiencies to be gained.
oh yes. And you start to see a lot more municipalities getting away from backhoes. They still have their purpose. But you see them getting away from a backhoe and going to a mini just because of the more function.
Thank you.
I'm good. All right, next up is the case loader with plow wing. So this has been on our list, I think, every year since Eric and I have been on this
It
team
was here
together.
before I got.
And he's been very patient, waiting for this, but this is a replacement to one of our main snowplow apparatuses. And so this is one of those that we really should probably order fairly soon so that we can get built, constructed, and ready to go for us. Maybe, I don't know if it's ideal, would we get it by this coming winter season? It'd probably be for the year after.
If I go brand new, he's 4 to 6 months out. If there's one on the lot or a used one with less, I said I wouldn't look at anything with more than 500 hours, because then I'm getting right back into the boat of a replacement again.
Right.
They have some on the lot.
Okay.
And then I would change how we operate. So on the loader currently, it's a plow and a wing. I would get rid of the plow and the wing and it would be what they call as a metal press plow. And then it's a straight blade of 16 feet and then is it 3 feet on each side that can extend or fold up? So less abuse to the loader because not having that wing on the back hitting that frame and chewing our tires. So and Cedar Grove went to them. I think Oosburg went to them. I think Cedar Grove runs 2 of them. So they say they like them a lot better than the wings.
Any thoughts on that?
Sounds reasonable to me.
And then next up is a brush chipper. I'll let you take this one right away, Eric, since you've had so much fun with it recently.
So obviously we chip every Monday for, was it 7 months? And then besides regular street maintenance and then park maintenance. We're getting up into that hour time of, we're gonna have to start looking at rebuilding the bearings. New drum, and you're probably around 15 to 20,000 for that. So instead of looking at spending that money in there, of replacing. And then this unit would be a little bit smaller, but a lot more technology advanced. So like automatic shut off, safety features that if you get too close and you hit it, it shuts off. So instead of the going all the way through it. But-
Yeah.
So just updated, and then instead of driving around with it running full speed, after a minute, it doesn't sense anything, it shuts off or shuts down.
How old is the one that we have?
I believe that's a 2012.
Not super old, but.
No, and I'm a little low on my number there, because when he sent it back to me, it was higher. I didn't realize that they've gone up that much. I think we could get 20 for ours.
So we could sell it and offset the cost. Is that cost selling price offset?
No, what, you know, only because I don't know like what the market would be then, so I couldn't say, and that I get more in auction than trade-in. So I never like using that number and then I don't get it. But if that would be the case, then I'd like to go a little bit higher to get that, but that is without a trade-in or the sale of it. So, but I don't see why I couldn't get 20 for that. I mean, we maintain it. It's just getting at that time where it's getting ready.
So then next up is our reconstruction project. So for those who don't know, 3 years ago, we did a road and utility study that allowed us to have really a formula and way that we grade our roads and utilities to see which projects are a higher priority for us. And then beyond that, it comes with a calculation that our engineers help come up with that gives you kind of like a rough estimate of how much the project is going to cost. So for those that have been here for a couple of years, you know that really our next road project was going to be Wheeler. So that's the street that goes by the DPW shop south of Fireman's Park there, and then extends underneath the railroad tracks. And then when we started to get estimates for that for this very purpose, surprise, surprise, going underneath federal railroad tracks are an expensive deal. And what started off as a $500,000 project now is estimated to be like $1 million. And so once we got that number, Eric and I had a really frank conversation. I said, do we really want to spend $1 million on a road that, no offense, isn't probably a primary use road for the average person? While it's certainly important for staff, it just might be too big of a project for us to tackle right now. So after we had that discussion, then we went to the next road on the list, which is Washington Ave. So we recently did what is it?
North Wilson.
With North Wilson. And when Wilson was constructed, they started to tap into Washington Ave there with the connecting points at that intersection with the plan on us just continuing it. And I'm sure trustee Beckman remembers that. So that project's kind of already ready to go. It's a direct replacement all the way. And we could use some of these funds to help address some of the water utility issues that are along the streets over on Milwaukee Street. So it seems like a logical step for us to just move down the line to that project. So that's what you see broken out here. So it's 220 that hits the general fund, and then 140 for the water and 210 for the sewer. Keep in mind, as we get closer, before we'd actually borrow the money, we would solidify what these numbers are to get closer to that estimate with our engineers. But these are just kind of rough numbers of what it should be based off that calculation that we use. Any questions on the road project?
No, I'd just be marking the next one off, and checking the next road off the list, so.
Yep.
And it needs to be done, so.
Yep. There's always more work to do for roads. All right, so that finishes up the borrowed project. So everything that I've given you so far, and you can see it totaled down at the bottom, is what we would plan on doing in our bonding schedule for the 2-year bonding that would start in 2026. Everything else on my list to you is what we call cash on hand CIP projects, which means we're literally using cash that we took from our tax dollars, throwing it right into the CIP fund, and we're spending it right away. So these consist of smaller items, and I'll just breeze through these quick. Crosswalk installation at Fillmore and Fredonia. This was just talked about at the public safety meeting as a recommendation. It's taking the same kind of crosswalk installation that we did down here by Dollar General, and then adding one of those up there at that other intersection, especially towards yeah, especially towards that the park going into Wisconsin there and Marie Krause. For that, I'm guessing increased pedestrian traffic that we're gonna have over
Yeah,
there.
'cause there's gonna be, I know my son complains often about
Yeah.
nobody stops.
Yeah.
To let them cross the road right there.
For sure. Next one is just a replacement of our brine tank, which if you have questions, Eric, I'm sure could tell you. Replacement of one of our lawnmowers, a replacement of our UTV with cab and plow. And then reconstructing both the municipal parking lot that you guys have heard about, and the Stony Creek lot as well, so that park. So we'd most likely hire one contractor to come in, pulverize and do asphalt for both those projects. And then finally is the 30-year maintenance just within the sewer fund for the glass sludge storage. And if you want to hear how exciting that is, I'm sure Eric could tell you.
20-year maintenance. It's just at the year 30.
That's
Oh,
fair.
so
Yeah.
Don't own it
Yeah.
for a decade.
So because that is, for those I know Don would know, that is technically a harvester. So the old harvesters you'd see on the farm, so it's that glass, it's a glass tank. So you're supposed to reseal that. So it don't leak, fade, break, crack. And it hasn't been done. And the company came up from Illinois and we cleaned it all out, washed it, and then, don't quote me what they were, anarods, and inside there's supposed to be 12, there's 2 left. I mean, it's time to update it and put the stuff back in there. So we haven't used it since I got here, so 2023. We hauled it out, cleaned it up, and have been waiting.
And this project is a good example of the benefit of the village moving forward with increasing our sewer rates. If you remember when the study came back, they said, well, the advantage of doing this is that you have more cash on hand to take care of capital needs. Well, this is an example of just that, right? We can afford to expend $110,000 just with cash on hand instead of borrowing it because we have that additional revenue coming in. And I'll just play off of that. And again, you don't need to approve 2027, but we'll probably do the same thing for, you'll see that utility crane truck that's split between the water and sewer for $50K each. That's another one that we'll probably be able just to pay cash on hand with additional revenues in 2027 when we get there. So just to kind of connect the dots, a decision that you guys made a little while ago, there is a benefit to doing that on an annual basis. So. But in summary, that's what I got as far as the projects go. I'll pause there if there's any other questions on those projects.
The brine tank, zero turn mower and the UTV, are you going to be selling the old ones then?
The brine tank, I was gonna leave in there and use that as a backup, so there's
Okay.
a hole in the tank. So I can't fill it all the way full. But the county wants to bring so much off their truck, so basically they fill it and it just runs out. Cause they don't wanna take that load back there, otherwise they're dumping it out. So I was just gonna put it, right next to in the fence there that's locked. Right next to it, run them both, but this brine tank would be a lot bigger that I could take a full load.
Sorry. And this would just be a backup in case you need to do any maintenance or repair. on it.
Yep.
Okay.
Or if he can work it out, cause I try and do most of the installation myself. Is, once it gets so far, then they would level together. But I'm not sure with how big this tank's gonna be, so.
Okay.
That salt is hell on those tanks, isn't it? Cause I remember getting that just during my time here, so less than 7 years ago.
And when they looked at it, they asked why all this extra stuff was here and. I'm like, I don't know, this was before me. They recommend repiping it because there's filters and breaks where everything goes, and he's like, why don't you just run it straight? So if it goes through, then it'll all get redone, but I didn't want to touch it until I knew what was gonna happen.
I mean, I know salt can be hell on equipment, so makes sense.
But
Any
the
other
mower and the UTV, you're planning on auctioning or?
Yes, the old one we have, the X Mark, it's down, the disc golf uses it. But I think there's 4,000 hours on it, and I think I rebuilt the deck last year because everything fell off it, so it's. And it burns oil, so. Looking to get it replaced before I lose it.
Yeah.
And then the UTV, I did catch that Chris dropped it below the amount I had requested. As you guys see as a board and resident, we use that UTV we have right now a lot. A lot. Why it's nice to take it in the parks, because I don't wreck the grass, I don't wreck anything. I have the kids take it through the disc golf, and that's where they do their weeding and that. Then, so the one we have now currently has 13,000 miles on it. So we use it a lot, and before I started, it was actually kind of our vehicle, because it was a short one. I didn't plan on replacing the one we have right now. Only because I know we could use them both, but that would be on the list to replace. And if I have to offset that cost, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, so it's the one we have is a 2017. Besides replacing some tires that go flatter and whatnot, I think I've only stuck $1,600 into that 7 years. And that was just a big 5-year maintenance of dumping all the fluids, new tires. So they hold up.
So your preference would be keeping that one and not selling it, just.
Yeah, run them both. It's a lot nicer than taking trucks out in the parks and that. And then plus two, then they can cut across the bridge instead of driving out on the road with it. So,
The little bridge over Stony Creek.
yep, fits across.
I could see that. It's probably cheaper to use one of those than pulling out one of the trucks. I
Yeah,
thought that.
mileage wise,
Yeah.
yeah, they
Yeah.
are. Just from, we got our ATVs and stuff up north of, yeah, they.
Any other thoughts or questions on the list? All right, then to put this in summary here, so again, cash projects, we pay for a cash, borrowed projects, we do on the 2-year bonding cycle. So much of what we do as we revamp this list over and over and over again is each time we send the new list to Ellers, our financial advisors, and we say, all right, what's going to be the tax impact if we do this? And I'm not naive to know that this board, and I certainly don't have an appetite to make taxes go like this. So the goal is always to at least try to streamline and maintain an average rate, even when we need to borrow dollars overall. So the best illustration of that in your packet is page 11. It should be listed projected debt service impact of proposed 2026 CIP financing. I'll wait till you get to there. So this chart, it can be confusing, but I'll try to explain it as best as I can. On the left side, where it says existing debt only, this paints a picture of if we never borrowed money again, what would be the impact? You have on the left side, you have the years, you have the value of our village projections, TID out. Again, the TID is not part of this conversation. The annual principal and interest payments, what our costs are, less it's called abatement sources, which is the total projected revenues expected to abate the city's levy. That's like utilities and things like that. And then you take the net debt service levy, so the amount that we would need to be collecting, you divide that by the equalized value, and it spits out this projected debt service rate. So again, this is not a dollar for dollar rate, but it gives you an idea of what the mill rate impact would be. And so it shows for this year, we're at like $1.47 for how much we had to pay off this year, divided by our equalized value. But then obviously, as we pay things off, the projected tax rate goes down until it hits zero, right? So if you follow me so far. Okay, so then on the right side, what you see is the proposed estimated debt service. So again, this is the impact of the new borrowing happening. And we pretty much want it to be around 1. So a 1 is like is a match of what the current rate would be. And if anything +1 would mean that the mill rate's going to go up a little bit. Anything -1 would mean that's going to go down. And so every time that we sent Ellers this new list, the goal was to get as close to 1 as possible, and net 1. And so what you see in the timeline here, 2025 again starts with that $1.47. We paid off one of our loans this past year, which means we're going to drastically drop next year to that's that 0.96 number that you see. And then we take on the new borrowing, and then it just goes up to that 1.03 before it averages out for a little while. And so what that's trying to illustrate is that the net impact of borrowing these additional dollars is really not going to mess with the mill rate as much as if we did a lot more, right? At one point, when I originally sent this list, I think it was like 1.6, which means that we would have gone even higher than the mill rate is this year, which I know we do not have an appetite to do. And so we had to keep stripping this list down until we got to an appropriate amount. And this is what we're recommending for you guys here. So hopefully that makes sense. That's how you read this chart and what that borrowing impact would be.
I might be getting ahead of the class here, but
Yep.
I looked at the next page.
Yep.
Can you remind everyone what our policy is for debt ratio or percentage of the limit?
I believe I had to pull that up here. You can ask one of these guys a question while I'm looking too. Databases. Farms permit. Document. Let's go search financial. Let's see. Hmm. You'd think it'd be something I could just rattle off, but I don't want to say it
That's
wrong.
kind of what I.
I know, sorry.
Didn't mean to give you homework.
It's all good. I just don't want to be wrong when I say it. Let me look here. The quickest spot is right in our budget book because we talk about it.
Yeah.
And that is, all right, debt obligation. It is 5%. All right, so the total value of the village is this was last year. The total value of the village estimated to be about 274 million. And our debt limit is 5% of that, which would be $13.7 million of borrowing. And so you could see right now we're at 2.7. If we add this, we'd be a little bit more than that, but we wouldn't be anywhere near the 5% of our self-imposed borrowing cap. So we could, right? We could borrow a heck of a lot more dollars. But obviously there's not an appetite to be doing that right now. So there's a short answer to the question.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, thanks.
Thought I knew the answer to, but I wasn't sure.
Yep. But I think what you're getting at is on the next page there, it talks
Oh.
about
It's column 3.
the current and projected debt limit calculations and percentage of limit. So again, this is the 5% that it shows there and how much existing debt we can take on. So again, it's just illustrating we're not knocking on the door quite yet.
So if I'm reading this correctly, 2025, it's saying we're at 73% of our debt limit.
Of the projected, of the equalized value,
Right.
yes, they're measuring it differently than we do.
Mm-hmm.
Our limit is based off the total assessed value of the village.
All right.
Theirs is a percentage that includes our utility debt along with our TID-in debt. That's why you see that enclosed in there. But before, again, that page 11 is trying to illustrate the general levy impact, because that's what's going to impact your tax dollars, not the other one. Because the other one's paid through, the TID, the utilities and all of that.
So I believe, yeah, that percent of the limit is the percent of our self-imposed 5% limit. So, well, we are getting up there at 75%. Yeah, I mean, we're still okay.
And a big chunk of that, I mean, we all know is the TID, right? So as that hopefully continues to grow here, then that'll help paint a rosier picture as well.
We need some buildings built, start taxing. Appropriate.
Right.
So what this timeline looks from here, if you guys recommend the 2026 projects, then that recommendation goes before the village board. The full body will weigh and give their opinions on that. And then we start to put that into our budget as a whole. And then even once it's in there, doesn't mean necessarily these things are all set in stone. We'll come back in spring, when we do our bonding process and talk about what that looks like. Maybe some of these numbers will have changed for good or for bad. And we'll make quick decisions to take certain projects out or add certain ones in, if the timing seems right. And we can go from there. This is your first glance and we'll keep talking.
So what's the thoughts of the committee?
Well, I think you've done a good job of cutting down Eric's extensive list.
Keeping Eric in check?
Yeah, him in check, really making him sharpen his pencil.
And just to show you that, if you look at the longer list, you can see 2028, look at all those projects. It doesn't mean we're doing it in 2028. That's just kind of where they went after they got out of the next 2 years here. So don't get really excited in 2028.
Well, and I think some of the stuff is very necessary, maintenance that has been needed for quite some time. So. We all know that you've been dealing with what you've had.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting her cleaned up.
Seems reasonable to me. I mean, I'll say it looks like it's a reasonable amount, not too much.
And we know Eric with his bargaining and his deal making, he will try to get the best pricing as possible.
I was
Always
gonna
do.
say, even in the short time I've been here, I've
Yes,
seen him trying, you know. come and
he'll
think of-
wheel and deal and,
Yeah, as long as he doesn't spend more than he's allowed to
Yes.
again.
yes.
No, he would never do that.
He won't ever forget that.
Um,
Not while I'm around.
Just one thing real quick, before we end here, I do want to point out, we talked about it at public safety. When you look at the 5-year projection, you see the big looming item is the fire ladder truck.
Mhm.
So that's a replacement of the fire engine. At public safety, we talked about it. We had the fire chief here and I was very frank. I don't have a magic answer of how we're gonna afford a $1.5 million fire truck. We'll continue to,
Doing some, fundraising.
Yeah, that suggestion went over really well.
yeah,
didn't
we
it?
had that suggestion. There are a couple vehicles that the fire chief talked about that we could probably part with in order to help get a down payment on whatever we end up doing. But just know, we don't need an immediate answer, but it's something that should be in the back of all of our minds that this is gonna be coming at some point here.
It's on this
Yep,
discussion last year.
yep. Yes, ma'am.
So if we want to recommend this to the board, I believe we're in order for a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to recommend the Board of Trustees, the 2026 CIP requests.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Obviously, no. Motion carried unanimously. Correspondence, none. Items for future consideration.
Just know that this body will meet again when we have a draft budget ready to go. So that'll come before you. For those that have not been a part of this process, the draft budget is you're literally looking at the line items one by one with us. So just be prepared. That's kind of a long meeting. But it's a good opportunity for you guys to ask the important questions of us and make sure that we have our numbers correct, because we often, we can make mistakes too. And then after we double check that, then again, it goes to a recommendation to the village board for approval later on.
So we're looking at around September.
Yeah.
If we go by the timeline here.
Correct.
I will say that that process has gotten a lot easier. It's less dreadful than it has been in the past. So, keep up the good work on that. I appreciate that.
Things and trying to plan accordingly and
Yep.
having us look ahead is very helpful.
Yeah, so while that meeting is long, it's
Yeah,
not
not-
long anymore.
Correct.
So,
You got it. And we're not gonna haul department heads up here to plead their case and.
make the paper bleed, basically.
All right, I can see the fire chief still doing that, but.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
I'll reach the board meeting.
All right. Well, I got your chair all warmed up for you, boss.
Thanks.
He's got your chair.